They're good enough through the season and they can get into semi-finals, but then they lose the semi. Yeah. They've never made a final, have they?
That is a massive signing.
I think they're harder, they're tougher, they're more resilient.
The CEO said they were going to win the title.
I think they've been super impressive to be sat after 10 games.
That was a great finish.
Where do you think the big differences are then between the team that went to the final and made all this and now?
I think they've lost power in their pack.
Is there going to be a point where it almost feels like there's a moral duty for the sport to help Wales?
Hello, this is The Ruck, the journalists' rugby podcast from The Times and the Sunday Times. Welcome along. January is almost over, which means the Six Nations is right around the corner. We'll chat about England's squad, which was named by Steve Borthwick on Friday, but their opening weekend opponents, Wales, well, the questions and uncertainty about the very future of the regions and the game itself continue to dominate the headlines. Plus, the latest round of Prem action had a little bit of everything. I'm Alfie Reynolds. All of that to come in the company of The Times Deputy Rugby Correspondent Will Kelleher.
Hello.
How are you, Will?
I'm good, and I'm on YouTube, as are all of us, which is really exciting, isn't it?
This is the first episode of The Ruck that you will be able to watch on YouTube. So you may be listening to us at the moment, as you usually do, but if you feel so inclined, do go and check us out.
You can watch us as well. I've had friends before when we've put up video clips being like, I didn't know that's what Alex Lowe looked like. It's like when you read a book, isn't it? And you've got an idea of the characters.
He's a matinee idol, isn't he?
Yeah. But also, we've got, look, Mark Evans is here.
I was going to say, that voice you just heard is the long-awaited, eagerly anticipated return of Mark Evans. How are you, Mark? Good to see you.
Thank you, guys. What have you been doing while I've been away for 3.5 years? I mean, you've certainly gone up in the world now. Honestly, listeners and viewers, it's all a bit flash, isn't it? Yeah, lovely.
New logo.
We got our big boy pants on. We're in a new studio. It's all changed because, of course, I mean, you were a regular contributor to the Ruck, Mark, and then you've been spending... how many years now was it that you were the CEO of the Fijian Drua?
3.5.
So 3 years, 3.5 years.
10 months of the year in largely sunny Nandi.
Sounds awful.
It had its moments, actually.
Maybe politically difficult, but nice weather.
Hello, it was a great experience.
Yeah, I was going to say, how was... I mean, obviously, you've had a lot of varied experiences within rugby, but I'd imagine that with the Fijian Drua was pretty eye-opening, pretty exciting, a lot of challenges.
All of those things.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have missed it for the world. I was I look at it as being very, very fortunate to be given the opportunity, and it was... Ben Ryan got it right when he wrote about it in his book. Working in Fiji is a bit like the weather. It's sunny most of the time, but a storm's coming. It's just a matter of when. But that is all part, in a way, that's all part of the experience. And, loved it. And it keeps improving, despite itself in some ways, you might argue. But there are... 8th in the world now. And I do think in the next 4 or 5 years they might go to 6th, something like that.
Did it make you more or less hopeful about the game? Like you and Mike Elwin, one of our colleagues, wrote a great book before the 2019 World Cup.
Unholy Union.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which was all about all these massive issues in the game, from concussion to how to get the best out of Fiji and everything else. And having had all these jobs in different parts of the world, whether it's the Southern Hemisphere, Northern Hemisphere, going there and now coming back, do you go... I feel brighter about the future of rugby union globally, or do you kind of go, man, we've got so many problems still to fix?
I think more the former than the latter, and it's not binary. I do think Fiji's really come on and will continue to come on. I think it might just have reached a tipping point. It much less promising in Samoa and Tonga, and it's a very different. People who think they're all the same, forget it. You've never been there. They are very, very different, and Tonga and Samoa are a lot more difficult, and Fiji's not easy.
Is that because of the size or other? Yeah,
and
size,
culturally different as well.
More size and finance and capability and all stuff. But largely size. I mean, Tonga, 100,000 people. Fiji is 10 times as big. I mean. Anyway, it's actually the other bit to your question. It's made me more, I hope, not quite so focused on England or even Britain. We talk about rugby's in. It's usually meaning
in the UK,
the country we're in.
Yeah.
And then that's not accurate. And people say, "Oh, rugby's in crisis." Well, it's not in crisis in Ireland, is it? It's not in crisis in France. It's not in crisis in Fiji. It's not. Yes, of course, you look around the world, but there are some really good sort of improvement stories as well. And it's I hope has made me a little bit more measured.
Good.
In my analysis.
We may not be helping here with our first topic, though, in terms of positivity in rugby.
Yeah, well, indeed, quite. The Wales situation, which is an ongoing situation, do go online on the Times. Elgin Alderman has been across this reporting on it and doing a great job, I think, of trying, Will, to make sense of what's a pretty unwieldy and complicated situation. I'm going to do my best to sum it up in a few bullet points.
Here we go,
and then we can take it away. I might not do a particularly good job, but I mean, listeners, a lot of listeners will already be aware of this. The WRU devised plans to go from 4 to 3 professional teams, which basically has meant it looks like a shootout in the West between the Ospreys and Scarlets. Now, the big news in the last week is that Y11, who are the owners of the Ospreys, are the WRU's preferred bidder for Cardiff. Cardiff went into administration last year. They've been run by the union since then, and they've been looking for buyers, and it is the current owners of the Ospreys that are their preferred bidder. Now, the WRU would say that they're having to make decisions for the game to run sustainably, which means forced teams simply doesn't allow that, and there is a huge cacophony of voices that totally disagree with that. Understandably, emotions running high in the Welsh game at the moment, and all of this will happening with Steve Tandy naming his Wales squad and the Six Nations, men's Six Nations, about to start.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing a similar job to you've just done there. I was on the train up here going let me just get a sense of the timeline of last week. And you go, Monday was largely that stuff there of Wales Online, the journalist there broke the story about Y11 being the preferred bidder for Cardiff. Then, obviously, supporters angry on all sides because that looks like, OK, the owners of the Ospreys will just now own Cardiff and we'll wind down the Ospreys. Jobs are good and we've got 3 regions. Tuesday, Tandy Six Nations squad. Wednesday, WRU in Welsh Parliament told not to be autocratic and dictatorial. They've got a grilling there. So then the fan groups have raised the Anglo-Welsh question again. Thursday, WRU confirmed that they are giving exclusivity to Y11 to try and buy Cardiff. The Ospreys have said they're going to continue until at least 26-27. Then Ospreys players are walking out of meetings, saying they've been left in the dark. There was a threat of a strike, which has now calmed down a little bit because the Welsh Rugby Players Association have a bit more clarity on what is happening. On the weekend, the Ospreys CEO Lance Bradley met with Swansea Council, who then said they had no viable future. The council said that of the Ospreys, and it's all linked to the funding around the redevelopment of St Helens. He said that was untrue. The Swansea Council doubled down. The Ospreys, meanwhile, then drew to the Lions on the weekend. Quite creditable result there. And all the while, the Central Glamorgan Union are trying to gather support for an extraordinary general meeting to oust Richard Collingwood, the WRU chairman. So that was a week that was in Welsh rugby. And Mark, having come back to this side of the world, what do you make of all of this carnage? A big sigh?
Yeah, I'm Welsh and it's a big sigh. Wales is a very tribal country for a pretty small country. To 2.5 million people in the 80 miles between Llanelli and Newport, really. That is Welsh rugby. It's not the whole of Wales, of course not. But that's rugby Wales to a large degree. Historically, it's the national sport, and historically it's based on fierce local rivalries, all the way down. It's the village next door that you want to beat the most and all the rest of it. And that's true everywhere. Local derbies, that's why they're so popular. But in Wales, it's very, very difficult to get consensus. I think that's what last week's just shown us. The core problem, looking at it from the outside, seems to me to be this. We haven't been producing enough international quality players from the pathways and development systems in the country. I think actually you could probably get most of the country behind that statement. It's the next bit that's causing all the trouble. Okay, if we all agree with that, and without that, the national team will not be restored to its former glories, we need to put more resources into it. The structures we've had and the amount of resources we've put to it in the last 10 years has self-evidently been insufficient. So it's about what the economists call opportunity costs. There's not a lot of extra money sloshing about, and you do hear this, if we hadn't built the hotel, they haven't done the skywalk. That doesn't touch the sides in a 10-year plan. That's when it comes to, right, well, where do we get the money from? Well, if we had fewer teams, we could divert the money. And at that point, you've probably still got a bit of consensus until you again say who. And then everybody goes, well, I don't mind, but not my team.
It's that NIMBYism, isn't it? Of not in my
And
backyard.
I get it. I totally get it, because I think that's one of the biggest issues. And then secondly, I'd say, I think I can understand the theme is centralisation. You can look at what's happened in the last years and months. There's a belief, and I would agree with it, that small countries need to centralise their programmes more. I mean, I don't think there's any. You're England, you're France, big economies, South Africa even to a degree, large numbers of players. The law of large numbers will almost always see you through. That's not true if you're Wales. It's not true if you're Ireland. Scotland, New Zealand, Fiji. They're all small countries. And Wales has always quite resisted centralisation. We come back to this sort of,
because of the tribalism.
Country of tribes. And that's why it's proving so hard. It's almost as if there's unanimity that change needs to happen, and that's about where the unanimity stops. There's a lot of things Wales haven't got, economically and size and all the rest of it, right? But culturally, the game's really, really important. And you can say, all right, we'll never have the economic clout that bigger countries have got. So where's your unique advantage? The competitive advantage Wales should have is that it gets a disproportionate number of the best athletes because the game's so important. So
as opposed to football.
Do you worry about that, though? Do you worry?
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, the Wales
absolutely.
football team feels like it's becoming bigger and bigger.
It's improved out of sight.
Yeah.
And Wales, football in participation terms has always been bigger than rugby in Wales. I mean, people don't realise that, who don't come from Wales. It's always been bigger, but culturally, rugby it's the game that traditionally we could compete on the global stage. And therefore, if we don't get our pathways and development programs being top class, then that's our one core advantage wasted. And I just don't think we can afford to do that. So I'm not sure just being conciliatory is going to get the job done. I'm not sure that just looking for unanimity is going to get the job done. I would try and frame it around, look, guys and girls, we all know we got to improve this bit. And to do that, we got to take some resources from somewhere else. And that's going to be painful. But can we at least all agree on that? And after that, is it 2? Is it 3? Everyone loves the idea of an English going in Anglo-Welsh. That's about the only thing that seems to get everybody on board.
What do you think about that?
Well, I think you'd have to go to 2.
For an Anglo-Welsh?
Yeah, so is everyone okay with 2 as long as it's an Anglo-Welsh? I'd be asking some quite interesting questions.
Well, that was what the WRU originally wanted to get
You
down
don't
to
want
didn't
3. They? Okay, well, but you're okay with 2 in the Anglo-Welsh, are you? Well, make
Where's
your mind
the third
up.
one go?
I think it's no point. I think the worst decision ever made in pro rugby was Wales in the late 90s, Vernon Pugh and the rest, who had that opportunity. I know they did. I was in the room and turned it down. But look, we are where we are. There's no going back. Could you get... I certainly don't think you get more than 2, and I'm not sure you can get 2.
The thing I always think about Anglo-Welsh, so I know looking below a lot of Elgin's articles in the last week, there's all the comment Anglo-Welsh, and there's such a groundswell of support for it. But then I also suspect that there is a bit of a generational divide in a way, because... So I'm from Bristol. I never grew up with that Anglo-Welsh
Cardiff,
rivalry.
Bristol,
So to be honest...
Yeah.
Sure, like Bristol playing Cardiff, great, but it doesn't excite me anywhere near in the way that it does plenty of other fans. So I don't know whether it would take off in the way that people suspect.
I think it would take off in Wales, is the point.
Yeah.
I mean, that Wales almost define themselves by England, and in a lot of ways, not just in a rugby sense. There's no coincidence the Welsh football clubs play in the English League.
Yeah.
In a way that the Scottish don't and the Irish don't. I do think it would be popular in Wales. I think you might even get, not everybody, of course, but you might get the majority agreeing to go to 2 if it was in an Anglo-Welsh league.
It's like a dual vote, isn't it?
It's almost like East-West. Well, all right, and I don't know, but
But it's not on the table. Like the Prem
It's not
would
on
have
the
to invite
table,
them, and they haven't.
It's not on the table. So what do you expect the WRU to do? Wait until 2028, and it might not happen then. That's not a strategy, is it?
So if you're either working for the union or one of the regional clubs, and you're in this spot you are in right now, what do you do? Do you have to, if you're on the union side, do you have to just say, you have to take all the brickbats and just go, I'm sorry, but we're now right, we're far too long along this path to change, and we're going to have to be brutal and put your fingers in your ears and go, I don't care what the comeback's going to be to this, but we have to do this? Or do you have to try and come with some sort of compromise that then maybe doesn't achieve what you ultimately want? Like, how on earth do you manage your way out of this?
I think the compromise has already been made, hasn't it? It was going to go to 2, and there was such a pushback, it went to 3.
But as you said, it's like, it's 3, but not the Ospreys. And you're like, well, come on, lads, it's got to be one of you.
I keep coming back to the fact is that we've got to get some resources to improve the thing that we have always had and seem to have lost, which is
talented kids,
a steady supply of top-class players.
Yeah.
And people, you do see some nonsense though, don't you, online? It's to do with the death of the grammar schools. Mate, we haven't had grammar schools in Wales for 65 years. Okay, seriously, you're telling me it's all down to that? I mean, it does. Well, you've got to laugh, haven't you?
Do you ever worry, Mark, that, and we don't know the answer to this, but do you ever fear that what we're currently seeing in Welsh rugby is what steadily happened to West Indian cricket, for example?
That's a very interesting analogy, isn't it? I think probably not. The West Indies is the cricket's the only thing that brings the West Indies together as an entity. I mean, they're independent nations, and I therefore think it's again, you've got to be a little bit careful.
It's geographically, politically different.
Absolutely. However, I do think there are some similarities. Countries' attachment to sports can change. I've got to hope not, and I don't think it will. But professionalism has made it very hard for small countries. It's a very interesting sort of analogy, that West Indian cricket. I am a glass half full sort of guy, and I do feel that you will come out the other side. And I do remember some very, very dark days previously. Again, I can remember when the Welsh team fought against each other in an after-match function in Australia. You're way too young to remember that.
Sounds great.
Do you not remember that? Oh, look that one up, okay? That was quite extraordinary. And that was at the time. And
what's this, 80s?
80s, yeah, late 80s. And Wales had pretty much lost their whole team. And I do mean their whole team. Everybody just went. The whole team disappeared. And if you want to go back, to the 1920s when 700 Welsh rugby players went north when the economic depression came to Wales earlier than it came to the rest of the country. So we've seen, I'm trying to put this into context, I'm sorry for the non-Welsh listeners, we've been through some tough times before, and the game has always come through.
I've got one thought for you to end off this section, which is maybe related to the Fiji argument. I know totally different situations, countries and everything.
Yeah.
Is there going to be a point where it almost feels like there's a moral duty for the sport to help Wales, but i.e. rugby union as a whole can't afford to have one of its great nations, of which we've only got 10, 12 who are genuinely good, to die? And so, for example, the RFU or English rugby, whatever, however you term that, go, actually, this is bad for us, this is bad for everybody.
It's hard because you look at Welsh Rugby Union's revenue against other unions in the world, it's not very low. They've just got an extraordinary number of mouths to feed. They've got a lot of clubs. They have. There's
almost like
huge numbers of clubs in Wales,
hoisted by their own petard there because they love it so much, and they've got too many to look after.
In a little way, but I know what you're saying, and certainly it's very hard. What would Argentina say? Argentina don't have any of their players at home. Every single Argentinian player plays outside the country, and what have they done? Well, what they've done is now they've got 4 regional teams who are very, very good and play against one from Uruguay, one from Chile, in that South American sort of super rugby
thing,
type of thing. And I think it's very hard to see who would step in because I'm not sure it is a yes, money's very, very tight, but no, not as tight as in some other markets and some other countries. And no, I don't think. I thought it was a good question, but I think the answer is no.
And I guess that the other side of it, a bit like the Argentina thing, is like Italy could well go, well, we were losing 30 plus Six Nations matches in a row. No one helped us. And Samoa are like, look at all of our issues in politics and governance, and no one helps us. No. Why would you just suddenly help Wales and not everyone else? That's tough.
Not true about Samoa, actually. They do get a bit of it, but I take your point. Yeah.
Well, so many questions for the game in Wales. The questions in terms of on the pitch is that their opening match of the Men's Six Nations is at Twickenham against England. We'll be looking ahead to that next week. But no doubt all of this stuff in the background, all the politics is going to keep bubbling away, and we'll do our best to keep you across it on the pod and, of course, in the paper and online as well. Up next, we'll get into the Prem Rugby action over the weekend. So the final round of Prem action until after the Six Nations, so it's not until March that the division returns. It's that part of the season where it's very, very stop-start, and some fascinating results over the weekend. But I wanted to start, Mark, with another one of your former clubs off the pitch. We can say Saracens' thumping win against Newcastle on it. That wasn't the interesting thing last week, though, because not only did we have Jamie George confirming that he's going to retire at the end of the 2027 season, probably after the World Cup, we have Mark McCall stepping away, a man who's been so synonymous with that club, with the glory years. It's been just 15 years, hasn't it, that he is going to be departing. Well, he's still going to be around, but he's
technical advisor.
Yeah, he'll be there in an advisory capacity and on the board and stuff, but he's going to be stepping away from his current role. And Brendan Venter is returning.
Quitting his job as a doctor again to come back and save Sarries. It's like Back to the Future, isn't it? Did you cross paths with Brendan Venter?
I know Brendan, when he was at London Irish, and a little bit. He took over at Sarries, and I was not long later left Quins, so not sort of directly. I mean, a lot of time for Brendan. I think he's got a hell of a rugby brain, and he loves that club. And yeah, I think it'll be seamless, if I'm honest.
The McCall element of it's fascinating because Owen Slaughter wrote a really good piece about this on the weekend, which tried to sort of sum up his kind of like dual legacies at Saracens, where you got all these trophies, incredible success, and the way he helped England so much by coaching these brilliant players from Owen Farrell to the Vunipolas and Jamie George, Maritoji, and all those guys we know about, George Cruz. You could keep naming millions of them daily, etc., etc., etc. But then there's also this other side that never really got addressed, which was the whole involvement or otherwise in the salary cap saga, which he was right in the middle of. And I'm not saying that meant that he was part of it, i.e. it was his fault. I'm just saying that he was the director of rugby of a coach who broke the salary cap regularly, and nothing stuck to him. And it was remarkable, wasn't it, at the time, and is interesting now that it never gets brought up at all. And people might be listening to this or watching this and saying, like, oh, God, he's only just gone, and the one thing you reach for again is the salary cap. But isn't that fascinating that you've dealt with this over in Australia, haven't you, in rugby league with Melbourne Storm?
Yeah.
It's weird how the coach often doesn't get the rap that the owners and everyone else do.
It's funny, isn't it? I say, I don't know Mark, and you have to admire what he's done there. I mean, there is an asterisk. There has to be, because it went on for so long, and that was quite clear. And let's not rebel. But people feel a bit, and I do too, feel a bit awkward about rehashing that again. Although I thought Owen's article was excellent, because on the other hand, he's had a remarkable reign and the consistency. And of course, I was at that club for 20 years, so about a long, long time ago. I think the most impressive thing about it all has been we talked about it again, how important it is, pathways. Their pathways and development programs have been absolutely outstanding. They really have, and continue to be. That group they've got coming through, I mean, everyone talks about Kalori, but there are a lot of them. The Bracken boys, there's 4 or 5 others.
Ollie Hartley's
one they are going to be a real golden generation, and they've now done that
3 times.
3 times, yeah. I think not far off.
Maybe the middle group were not quite as good as the 08
Maybe not. I mean,
crew.
you've got to take a little bit of a dip every now and again, haven't you?
Yeah.
And that comes down to the guy largely at the top. But I think their record in terms of player development and pathways has been terrific from an area that is not exactly a rugby heartland. It's not bad, but it's not.
Well, they get all the way down to Kent as
not
well.
Anymore.
Not anymore.
No. But they have produced and developed. That's the key thing. Developed and grown a whole heap of players, and for that, he should take a great deal of credit.
Can I take you from one former club, Mark, to another one in Quins?
No, do you have to?
Well, unfortunately, we've spoken about them so much on the pod in the last few weeks.
I
mean,
know.
again, it's just the classic. You go away to La Rochelle, what an unbelievable victory, and then at home against Leicester, almost got nilled, but scored a late try, 34-7. What do you make of what's going on at Harlequins at the moment?
You're going to put me in a difficult position here now.
I know.
I'm very close to the club emotionally, and I've never spoken about them publicly in any kind of serious way. I think it's fair to say they're in a very, very difficult position, and it seems to have come quite quickly. And that's, what is it? It's like when banks go bust. How do banks go bust? Very, very slowly, and then all of a sudden, bang. It's a bit like that. I wasn't absolutely convinced that the La Rochelle victory would be the turning point. And I actually haven't seen the game. I've been in Paris this weekend watching Racing play Lyon, so I actually haven't watched the game yet. But you were there, weren't you, Will? I read the report, and it wasn't very pretty, was it?
No, and look, there's some context here where, and I think he regretted saying it, but Jason Gilmour earlier in the season, before Christmas, wrote off the Prem campaign. So if that's in the minds of the players, and they just go, well, hang on, we've qualified for a last 16 in Europe, that's the only thing we're focusing on now, and then you got a one-off game hanging in the Prem against Tigers, and you go, what's this for? They look so meek again. And like Freddie Stewart, there's one example. Freddie Stewart ran a really nice line from fullback through midfield and scored a good try, but there was no attempt to tackle him at all. He ran through Sam Riley, the hooker, and Harry Williams, the prop. It was a good bit of identification of probably the people who were least likely to tackle him, but it was a turnstile job. It was a giving up. And then actually, to be fair to them, very loyal support Harlequins, sell out every week. They just said, I'm having enough here and I'm going to get on the A316 and go home. At least 10 minutes before the end of the game, thousands, I would say, of fans were gone.
You don't see that, Quinn.
And that is very bad
You
news.
did, actually. It's happened before.
2004?
2004. No, they never walked out in 4-5. No. The ground was being... don't have to remind me.
I was your ball boy at that point.
Yeah, well, the ground was being redeveloped. There weren't enough people to walk out. No, it happened around 2014. 15, when John Kingston's regime was coming to an end, that started to happen. It's a very, very bad sign for any club. If the supporters start to... They're making a statement, aren't they?
Yeah.
What I would say...
a lot of money. I mean, all clubs...
No, Quins is expensive. It's Southwest
expensive.
London. It's expensive. And I thought Jason Gilmour said the right thing. About,
he said, I won't begrudge that. We're not giving them enough to stay for.
And I also think what he said, what you were referring to, Willie, don't you think that influenced what Alex Sanderson said this weekend about Sale when he said, well, that's our playoff chance is done, but that's not the end of our season. I reckon he'd read the script on that one.
Yeah.
Mark, you might have been away for a while, but you knew exactly where I was heading then for the next part of the pod, which was on to Sale, because I was there on Saturday evening.
Oh, you were there?
Yeah, I was there.
And what's the feel like there?
I think not as bad as Quins at the moment, but I think a massive sense of deflation. Like on this pod, I predicted Sale, I think, to win. Simon Massey-Taylor,
CEO, said they were going to win the title.
Predicted
maybe,
Sale.
hopefully, because he wanted a different winner again.
Yeah, I think so. But I think you look at Sale now, and as you say, Alex Sanderson before the game, I mean, they had this as their do or die match. They rested all those players for Toulouse to give them a kind of 8-9 day run up to this game. 29-43, which actually the final scoreline was
2 late tries, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was wider than it was. It was actually a really good game. But
it was quite tight, wasn't it, till the last quarter?
Yeah. Pollock did what he did, came on, load of energy, scored a try.
He is fast, isn't he?
Yeah,
that was a great finish.
Do you know the other thing as well, actually, was it's almost the first time, I think because at England games, for example, we're like in the middle tier, so you're not right down pitch side, but it's the first time where I saw post-match, must have been over 100 like young kids just shouting Pollock, because he was going down the tunnel, like desperate for an autograph, and to see him, like the Pollock factor for younger kids for sure, like saw that in abundance. But I think from Sale, I wondered whether now, I mean, does it all become back Champions Cup? They're not a particularly high.
And guess who they're playing?
I know.
Yeah. The bald men fighting over a cove, isn't it?
Yeah. But it is, isn't it? It's kind of
one of them's winning that game and going to Leinster for a pop. And look, Leinster are not
playing
Leinster
that well.
of old.
No, they're not. No,
so
they're
there's
not.
a chance, but neither team are getting the best out of their squad. That's
I think
clear,
the Sale thing is, because what have they done? 4 playoffs in a row? Have I got that right?
Plus a final.
And a final,
They lost to
including
Sarries,
a final.
Yeah.
And it was all the narrative was all about one last push, wasn't it? Like, we've got to make another final, we've got to win one. And therefore their expectations, I think, were probably higher.
Which is interesting, because I think when you compare the Sale squad now to the team that reached the Prem finals, I think it is much weaker. And I know Simon Orange, the owner, came out when all the fans were upset that Rafi Quirk is heading to Newcastle and said, I think we're going to have a better squad next year.
Well, they're signing people like Marchant, aren't they? He's coming back.
Yeah, and I think they may well, but recruitment,
Nicky Smith,
I think, is...
great
Yeah,
signing.
they signed Nicky Smith. That is a massive signing. That is a really, really... where do you think the big differences are then between the team that went to the final and made all these and now?
I think they've lost power in their pack.
Okay.
I think
Dupree's.
you look at Van der Merwe as a hooker, was a really good operator. A couple of the Dupree boys.
Ewan Ashman was on the bench, wasn't he, a few years ago?
I know Manu didn't necessarily ever play his best stuff at Sale, but there was still more power in that midfield. I think they've lost power.
Okay, that's interesting because, you know, you look at making the comparison between the two teams. You look at the Quins team that won it in 21 and the teams in that. They're night and day. I mean, look at the front row.
Yeah.
I mean, that the Quins front.
Marla Lowe with Collier.
Marla Lowe and Collier. I mean, wow. Look at that front row.
And then like Scott Baldwin,
Yeah, and
just
Scott
quietly,
Baldwin
60
and
cap.
Joe Gray on the... that was and a bunch of young hookers behind them. That was a serious front row that won that title. I mean... And at the minute, at the moment, you don't know what's happening with the Quins in the front row at the moment. They lose Finn Baxter and they're looking a bit shaky. I can see where that team's changed. I struggle a little bit more, but you're probably right. But it doesn't show you it's not much.
Oh no, it's not.
Because I go down the Slale team every week because I'm such a nose, and actually, you know what? It's a good team. That's by no means a bad team.
On Saturday evening, I think their starting 15 was really strong, but when you compared it with Northampton had Furbank on the bench, Pollock on the bench. Yeah. They just had a little bit more in terms of punch off the bench, whereas for Sale, there's Aaron Reid was back from injury. He's obviously an international, but there's a few academy guys that are earning their stripes, I suppose. I think that's maybe the difference.
Injuries has been an issue.
Of course.
Like, they don't get Tom Curry very often. Through a season, he was playing a weekend.
He hobbled off as well, but he always hobbles off.
But
Ben Curry has not been fit.
That's true. A lot of teams. Look at Bristol. How they've come through. I mean, they got probably the smallest senior squad in the league, and they've had a pile of injuries. I mean, what they've done. I mean, that's another one the weekend. That was. You wouldn't have you'd have lost a lot of money on the spread, wouldn't you? Eh?
Well, I felt so brilliant having gone down to Exeter last week and done the inside the Chiefs revival. They love playing in the wet and the rain and the cold, and then hang on,
3-8 Bristol 8.
Yeah. But I mean, as a man from Bristol, Alfie, that is a great sign, isn't it? To the kind of like stereotype of the Bristol Bears would be the pretty fancy Dan team who don't fancy it up them enough.
63-49, yay!
And then they do that in some of the most horrendous conditions we've seen in a long time.
Which is interesting as well, by the way, on Bristol, because I saw this morning in terms of try bonus points this year. So Bristol have won 8 of their 10 games. They've got 5 try bonus points, which is actually quite a lot less than a number of other teams. So even though they are that team, obviously, I think I still don't quite know if they're going to be good enough to get over or get past, say, a Bath or Northampton, who look like the two best teams.
But
in
what
the
if
league.
they're at home?
Well, that's the thing. If they get a home semi-final, then I think it changes it. I would still, if they were to face either Bath or Northampton in a final, then they wouldn't be the favourites. I think the one thing I would say for Bristol this year is I think there is more of a steeliness to them, which I think goes into the injuries they dealt with. They've had the best Champions Cup, Heineken Cup pool stage. Their reward for that is an away trip to Toulouse, which they're very grateful for. I think they're harder. I think they're tougher. They're more resilient. I think they've been super impressive to be sat after 10 games, having won 8 of them.
Yeah.
I'm just not quite sure whether it's going to be enough to get silverware.
A bit like Sale in a different way, the thing that they've not done is win massive games at the end of the season. It's like they're good enough through the season and they can get into semi-finals, but then they lose the semi. Yeah. They've never made a final, have they?
Do you think the top four's done?
So at the moment, wow, Chiefs just dipping out of it. So we've got Saints, Bath, Bristol, Tigers.
I do.
Do you?
You reckon that's settled?
I think that's it.
8 games to go.
I think that's it. I think that's your top 4.
Okay.
That's a terribly ridiculous prediction, isn't it? But I'm going to make it.
No, I love it.
Just for fun.
You're now on YouTube, so people
Just
can
for
clip
fun.
that up. And
Also,
say,
you said at the top of the pod that you're more measured now. That's what you've learned.
Yeah, I am. I'm more measured about the game as a whole,
Okay,
but I'm
fine.
still a fan when it comes to
punchy predictions.
I just look at those 4 teams now, and I didn't think this at the beginning of the year. I think people are underestimating Leicester. I look at that team and think when they're all fit, they're a very well-balanced side.
do you know what? If this is the top 4 at the end of the season, absolute marketing dreamland for the Prem, because they'll have Saints, Tigers,
Yeah, Bristol,
and
Bath.
Bath, Bristol.
You want to fix the draw now, right? The 2 derbies.
Stop the count.
Oh, that Bath Bristol one
Can
was
you
so
imagine
much
that?
fun at the end of last
So
season.
they'll put
wasn't
one on the Friday. Franklin's Gardens will be Friday night. East Midlands
if
derby.
They could just get if they could just get Bristol at 4th and Bath at 1st, and then take them to 2 huge stadiums, it'd be brilliant.
Well, there is at some point they do want to do what the French do, and take the semis to a neutral location and play them on the same weekend. But they need to come up with a financial formula that works, because obviously, if Bath was home semi or Northampton do, they get a nice little extra boost at the gate.
It'll be a real sign of the confidence of the league when they choose to do that. Because
where would you choose to go if it was your as the man who invented the big game?
You'd have to do it early, so you don't want to go suddenly and go, let's go to a 70,000 seater stadium, because you don't know who you're going to get in the semis. So I'd probably start it off at somewhere like a couple of 35.
Brighton?
35. Brighton would be a decent
Milton
one.
Keynes?
The difficulty you've got is football season still going.
Yeah.
So availability is going to be tricky. But I just think, and I'd double header it probably. I'd
on the same day.
I'd put it on the same day to start with. I just think it's a real growth sign, and of course it won't make money or any extra money in the first couple of years. That's not the point. Are you confident enough that this will stand alone? Are we confident about our league and our sport that you can confidently take it to a neutral venue and be
sell it out?
Pretty sure you're going to sell it out.
That's like a big festival day.
And
of
then,
rugby,
in 5-10 years' time after that, you take it to a bigger stadium. You know, that's...
We'll see.
Maybe people should email in, Alfie, and say, well, what stadium would you pick?
I think you've got to put it kind of Midlands, like middle of the country.
Villa's quite big, though, isn't it? 50,000.
I don't know, but something like that. I think in terms the other thing as well is it would also depend on the teams you get, wouldn't it? Like,
you can't wait. You can't wait.
No, I know you can't.
You've got to put your stake in the ground.
I know, but then I suppose this comes back to your point of how confident are you in the shape of your league. But there's certain like if we got, for example, those semi-finals at the moment, if the league stayed the same, great. But if it's a year where if Newcastle, Red Bull are coming through, smaller fan base, Sale, smaller fan base, then it becomes a bit more tricky, doesn't it?
Well, the fact is you have to create the event that people, even from the smaller clubs,
will
go.
Which they do to the final
They
now.
do, and I still remember, was it Brian Kennedy when they went to Sale went to the final, won it in
06?
Was it 2006?
Yeah.
And you know, there were 25,000 Sale fans. Well, they only get 6,000-7,000 every week. I mean, people will go
Dust off the old shirts
for an event. You've got to create an event.
It's whether you'd pick a rugby heartland or not. Like, would you pick somewhere that's different, like Birmingham, for example? Would you say, well, let's put it there and try and attract different people, new people, or would you go, let's go southwest, let's go London?
I think you pick 2. If you do it in 2 grounds, let's say. I know I said do double. You pick 2 grounds, you stick with them for 3 years, and you create some
You build it as the thing that's always there.
Consistency.
Right, we're rattling through, so we better leave the Prem there. If you do want to send us an email, by the way, as Will suggested, then the email address is theruck@thetimes.co.uk. Up next, we'll finish off by looking back on the England squad for the Six Nations that Steve Borthwick named on Friday. So, Will, Steve Borthwick has named his England squad for the Six Nations. The Six Nations England are coming into in the best position they have done for absolutely ages, very much in the title conversation. And the props were the headline, not always that the props are the headlines, but that was the headline out of the squad selection, which we suspected it would be because of the injuries to Will Stewart, Asher Opoku, Forgery.
Yeah, so we're giving ourselves a little pat on the back because we said it will be Trevor Davison and Billy Seller and tick. So we're right on that front. I thought actually Beno Obano might nick in ahead of Manny Iogan, but I think there's maybe some thoughts of can Beno Obano last longer in games than he can at Prem level. So Manny Iogan gets the extra slot on the loose head side with Bevan Rodd underneath Ellis Genge. And there's a rehab list which is very interesting because it's got 5 guys on it who are kind of touch and go for that Wales game. So that's Finn Baxter, Ben Curry, Ollie Lawrence, Tom Roebuck, Finn Smith, all of whom you'd have in a 23. Ben Curry started in this last Six Nations. We've kind of forgotten about him because Guy Pepper's come through, Pollock's come through and everything else. But yeah, really cool for Billy Seller. I'm trying to gain more info about him this week for a nice background piece. And I was chatting to someone this morning about him who's saying that he was desperate to be a back row. And like Fijian heritage, Army heritage, he wants to play with the ball. And apparently amazing hands. We haven't seen.
I tried to get him to Drua.
Yeah, you wanted to get him
I
to
did,
Fiji.
yeah. But he's an English boy. You know, his dad...
Wooden Bassett, I think.
His dad was in the Army. I mean, Fiji's a small place. Everyone knows, I've got people know his dad. I know his dad, I'll ring him in. But he was quite clear that... in fact, I did suggest to... is it Rob, the recruitment guy at Bath?
Rob Burgess, yeah.
Yeah, why don't you send him down here for a year? This is 2 years ago?
Okay.
A year ago? Certainly not now. But when he was sitting behind... At one point, he looked to be fourth choice at Bath. Archie Griffin, yeah. That he was fourth choice. I said, look, I'll be honest, mate, you get in our team.
Yeah.
He could play 4 months of Super Rugby and come back. He'd be a much better player.
And why did he not?
I never quite know
or...
whether Johan just, got an injury or whatever, or he didn't.
As proven now.
Well, yeah, but this was last year for the 25 season. I think probably England, he was in the under-20s and they wanted to go to the World Cup and it just didn't, there was no interest. I thought it was quite clever.
So
but,
he's
another player. He is some player.
And Stuart Barnes thinks he should start.
But that's part of the thing for Borthwick. You've got Wales first up at home, so what does he do with his squad in building towards that game against France on the final weekend and how he gives new players opportunities?
The one thing he can't do, or he could, but it would mean his starters would be very inexperienced, is do the full POM squad thing that he did in the autumn. He can with the back row because he's still got all of those guys available, but he can't in props because he doesn't have Stewart, he doesn't have Baxter yet, probably for the first game. So he's going to have to start Genge, you'd think, in that Wales game, because Rod and then Iogan, that's a big drop off. And then that's an issue there about the last 20 minutes because that's when all these games are going down to the wire, albeit on form, you'd say it won't do that in the Wales game. And then you get Baxter back for Scotland, and that's huge. But on the tight head side, Hayes has been in brilliant form, has really become a proper international class tight head. He was excellent against the All Blacks, wasn't he? They were smashing some of those scrums. So, again, dependent on how you order your props, he's the front line guy, whether that means he starts or ends the game, is something to get into. But the one thing I thought that was really interesting, Alfie, when we spoke to Borthwick on Friday, is that this is a man who never speaks about a match beyond the next one, and unprompted he was spooling forward to the France match.
What was all that? I saw that.
It was remarkable. But does that show the confidence that he's got now? 11 wins in a row. Last defeat was a whole year ago now to Ireland. He was saying, I want England fans to flood over the channel to France to come and watch us. And he didn't use the extra bit that was in square brackets that was to try and win a title in a Grand Slam. But that's what he meant. It was a clear strategic thing to mention. It wasn't like we've pulled the answer out of him. He wanted to say that.
Still a bit out of character though, isn't it?
Very out of character, because through his whole Tigers career, the people used to tear their hair out when they'd go on runs of 15 in a row, and he would just be like, it's all about the next one.
Correct.
It's all about the next one.
And he's right. And I thought he might do it internally. All right, guys, this year.
Well, I think he did, and then said it publicly.
Why do it publicly? Yeah. I'm really surprised.
I'm glad he did, because it got us a nice piece in the paper. But do you know what? I like it. And I've seen fans already, when we put the story up, going like, I'm bookmarking this for March when they're not on for it and everything else, and arrogant England. And I'm like, England are at their best when they're chest out, and they go, come on, everyone have a pop at us then. Let's go for it. And then wear it. And he's not this guy that you would expect to be delivering that message, because he's not Ellis Genge, for example, or coaches on years gone by. But I actually quite like the fact that England are coming into this tournament going like, yeah, we should win this tournament. We're in a good position. Why not? It's been far too long. It's been 10 years since they won a slam, which also ended in France. And it's been 6 years since they won a title, and that was on bonus points with COVID in the way. So that's sort of was that a proper title, inverted commas? So I don't mind it. I quite like that.
I'm not minded. I'm just very surprised.
Yeah. I was surprised by that as well.
I think they're nervous about Murrayfield, though, and rightly so, because they haven't won there. Even though Scotland aren't that hot at the moment, that's a massive game in week 2, I would say. That will be defining for the whole tournament.
And we will be there for it, which will be good fun. The other one as well, which I know England have never lost to Italy, but I always think about that record. It has to end at some point, and Italy are really good.
Yeah.
And I know England are at the moment as well, but I always think that
any team with Menoncello in, we're enjoying, aren't we?
There's always a danger you overlook
that.
That
Combination is fantastic.
I think they're excellent. We need to finish off. I want to finish on an email, but just to flag, do go online and catch up with a lot of the writing that's been happening around the Six Nations. Sam Warburton, in his column, has been chatting about England's squad depth. Alex Lowe has been writing about the number 12 position and all the options for Steve Borthwick, and John Westerby has got a piece looking at Henry Pollock as well. So loads of stuff already there and coming your way. But let me finish with the email from Greg, who said, gents, looking at the England squad, I was interested in your view on how player form, club form, translates into England performance. Several players selected are in poor to average form by their standards individually, and or they're playing for poorly performing clubs. The best examples of this are George Ford and Marcus Smith. Another example is Maro Itoje and Ollie Chesham. In your experience, how does club form play out in the first game of an international block?
I defer to the guys who actually coached the team.
Well,
Professional
club
rugby.
form gets you into the team. Let's be clear. If you're a young player coming through, it's okay. Very, very occasionally you can do it out of the age group system, but it's quite unusual. That's what Pollock sort of did, and to a degree Salah has, because he's played a lot more for England age group than he's played for Bath. So a precocious youngster, maybe, but most players get into the national teams wherever they are by playing well for their club. But once you're in the squad and you've built up a body of work and you've gained confidence of the coach and you're getting older and your body is not quite as supple and dynamic as it used to be, let's say, then you've got other things to bear in mind. And it's interesting. I mean, I never quite, I'm going to make it a Fiji comment, I never appreciated until at the Drua, we were such a young team. And as the seasons went on, it became clear that was a weakness. And our age balance and our experience balance was just out of whack. There wasn't much we could do about it because that's what we were working with, and it was going to take a few years. But at international level, where it's a selection issue. You do give credit to players who've done it before. It's a difficult one because at some point, I thought I was watching this weekend, and I was watching Racing Lyon, and I think and you see Gael Ficou's been dropped.
Yeah,
I could see why.
yeah.
I could. Partly there's a huge number of incredibly talented young centres coming through in France. There's about 5 of them. But actually, and he scored a wonderful try as well. So he's by no means a completely busted flush. But there were bits about his game you thought of the weekend, I can sort of see it, really. And that's a very difficult judgment call from the coach. But for quite a while, the whole test match animal thing, I'm not quite sure I buy that. But I do buy the fact that you've got credit in the bank, you've got a body of work, and you can't turn it on 30 games this season. Not that hardly any players play 30 games this season.
I think it depends who you're talking about, doesn't it? Because someone like Ben Earl maybe has not been tearing up for Saracens every week, but when he's been playing for England, he's always man of the match. So you kind of go, well, that's the credit in the bank you're talking about. And similarly, George Ford's not playing in a very good Sale team, as we were talking about, but when he's been playing for England, he's been excellent, and he's been firing that back line that's been doing well in Argentina and then through the autumn. So credit in the bank there. The one I think, there's a couple where you go, definite form pick for Fizzalao, for example.
Yeah.
Like he's been tearing up for Chiefs, been excellent there, deserves his call. And then another one on the other side, you go, you can't say that Chandler Cunningham himself, for example, is in good form, but he's in because of the other things he does that other people can't do when he is in form. So like, of all those back row guys, he's the guy who's probably the most adept in the line out, and they don't have many line out options in the back row, so he probably stays on that front. Whereas if you're looking at on paper, you'd go, he's maybe not one of the best 7 back row at the moment, but he's got that thing that other people don't have. So there's reasons there, I guess.
Well, it always has to be a balance, right? Because otherwise, if you were only picking on club form every single time, then how much would your international
It would just change
side
so
chop
much,
and change
yeah.
all the time? There'd be no continuity.
And I'm sure a few club coaches would tell you, if they were honest, but probably only after the player had left the club, you do also get the situation where after a certain number of years, when a certain type of player plays far, far better for the country than he does for his club. And that's also a difficult one to manage as well, because they start to see themselves as
a test player.
I'm an England player
Yeah.
who plays for...
But actually,
Saracens.
I was going to say that they've formalised that now because of the enhanced EPS.
Yeah,
so
true.
I know, for example, that Tom Roebuck's probably been close enough to he could have played in the last few weeks, but England are pulling him back to say, get you into Girona, and then we'll give you a week and a half of training and get you ready for Wales. Don't worry about Toulouse, Northampton. And they now have the power to do that because they're in charge of selection for some of these elite 25.
So we're actually starting to see it work out. Fellas, we better leave it there because time is against us. But Mark, pleasure to have you back with us in our fancy studio.
Well, thank you for the invitation. It was highly enjoyable.
How are you enjoying being back on British shores more consistently as we sit here in miserable January? We get the Six Nations round the corner, so that's something to...
Yeah, light in the winter darkness.
Exactly.
I miss it to a degree, and I'm delighted to be back at one and the same time. It's you can't have everything. I've been very lucky, so we'll see.
Well, it's great to have you back on. It worked out well with the chaos in Welsh Rugby.
I was going to say, if you're a region or a club in crisis, here's your man.
Of which there are a few.
Yeah. Take your pick, Mark.
And Will, we're pretty much into Six Nations build up now, aren't we? Next week's Monday pod will be our big Six Nations preview, and then from that point on, it's going to be Thursday pods looking ahead to the games and podding after all the England matches.
And if people didn't realise, which maybe they haven't, because we know more people tune in at this time of year than in other parts of the year, the Six Nations are a week shorter. So we don't have that annoying gap where you have 2 games, 1 break, gap, it's just one match. It's just one.
Yeah.
So we go, just from an England perspective, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, bang, bang, bang. Break, Italy, France, done. So, and we're going to be on YouTube videoing all across the nations. It's going to be great.
Doing our best. Looking forward to it. Appreciate you listening. Do send us an email. I know loads of you will be wanting to get in touch throughout the Six Nations as well. So just a reminder, the email address is theruck@thetimes.co.uk, and we will be back with you for our Six Nations preview next Monday.